Welcome to the Computer Chronicles. I'm Stuart Chaffee. This is Gary Kildall, and this little guy is the star of our show today. There's a pun there, but we'll get to that later. The Macintosh has certainly been a big success by any measure, Gary, and we're going to be talking about the Macintosh today. It's interesting, though, in that the Mac didn't really represent technological innovation so much as an innovative use of graphics, certainly, and a user-friendly interface. So the story of the Mac really is about the importance of those two things, isn't it?
Well, you know, the Mac style interface has its origins really in work that was done over 10 years ago, so that's not new. But what the Mac has really brought us is really affordable, high-resolution graphics, and that leads us to a whole new generation of software where pictures and text are both important. In fact, it's really not just the ease of use, but really we're leading into applications that just couldn't have been done unless we had the high-resolution graphics.
Okay, on today's program, we're going to meet some of the original members of the Mac design team. We'll take a look at a piece of innovative software for the Mac called FileVision, and we'll take a look at GEM, a Mac type interface for the non-Mac world. Now, when the Macintosh first came out a little over a year ago, the big question was, where is the software, and will there be software? Well, the answer now that we're a year into this is certainly yes. Here's a look at what's out there.
In the short history of personal computing, there has never been such a dazzling campaign. In less than a year, the Macintosh was transformed into an instant myth, bigger than life, and a brash challenger to its arch-nemesis, IBM. But a computer's success depends on more than showbiz magic, and the most repeated question concerns software. At the Mac's introduction, there were all of two programs available, MacWrite and MacPaint. Since then, in fact, the number of Mac products has skyrocketed, and now numbers in the hundreds. From word processors to games to databases to video digitizers, a profusion of new programs has come out, many of them relying heavily on graphics. No fewer than 3 video interfaces are available for transferring live images, still photos, or a direct video feed. Once the image is captured in the memory, you can get a black and white printout. Getting a jump on Lotus's eagerly awaited Jazz is a multitasking package called Ensemble from Hayden Software. It is a good example of the special approach many suppliers are taking in designing software for the Macintosh, using pictures instead of words. An item called Mac Prompter puts the Mac's versatile font library to work, allowing the user to make changes in style, size, and speed instantaneously. On the hardware side, there are variations on the mouse idea, like an oversized trackball for users who tire of the space-hungry mouse that came with their machine. It's hard to say whether the third-party software is going in the business-like direction Apple seems to want. At this Mac show, there were at least as many fun-oriented programs as business-oriented ones, but that may just reflect the versatility rather than the limitations of the Macintosh.
Joining us now is Bob Foster. Bob is Vice President for Marketing at Telos Software, the makers of FileVision. And next to Bob is Joanna Hoffman. Joanna was part of the original Mac design team, and she's now in charge of product marketing for the Macintosh.
Stuart, we're at a point now in the industry where we have processors like the Motorola 68000, Intel 286, a half a mega memory is sort of standard, and we have high-resolution graphics like the Macintosh. And it leads us to a whole new level of software where graphics is a very, very important part of the application. Joanna, what kind of vision did your group have in terms of the new applications you'd see on the Mac?
Well, we knew that what we were creating was basically the clay from which everything else was going to spring. We were creating the raw materials for people to be able to build on top of and make phenomenal applications in the future. If you think about the history, and if you look at the Apple II, for example, we couldn't have conceived of having products like VisiCalc or AppleWorks or things like that running on this little machine.
So you felt like basically you were creating a tool, and you weren't really sure where this tool was going to lead.
Well, we knew it was going to lead into probably the next generation of software, but we didn't know to what extent, for example, and to how quickly these things would come along. And, for example, FileVision was something that we couldn't have possibly predicted. What we were hoping to do is provide enough tools in terms of very easy user interfaces, well-defined, built into the system so that all software developers had the tools at their fingertips. The whole point of the machine was to make it not only extremely powerful and useful, but also extremely easy to use.
Now, these applications that we're talking about that are really use graphics where we couldn't have used graphics before, you brought one example with you here. Can you show us what that's about?
Yes, this is a Macintosh project, for example. Anybody who has done project planning realizes that there are many, many components to planning out a project, and it really helps to see everything visually graphed out and put in front of you. Sometimes if you walk into a corporation's planning headquarters, for example, you will see walls strewn with paper and project plans all over them. On Mac Project, you can do it directly on the screen. For example, here we have a development project being planned out with all the resources and the scheduling, and you can easily see the progression of the project, what's in the way. All the milestones are sketched out. If I, for example, want to go and say, oh, well, this becomes a major milestone, I can go and easily change that to a milestone right here. And now the project knows that this is something that absolutely has to take place before anything else can be completed.
Right.
And so it's very visual, and you can enter things and plan things out and
this
see them
is a
in
good
different
example,
formats.
again, of something that you couldn't do on a, let's say, a teletype, obviously, or a teletype or cathode ray tube display.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But also, you know, there are so many views on the same project. For example, this is another way to look at the project and to see how things are going to fall out in the scheduling and so on.
Now, this
And
is
you
very
can-
graphical in its nature, and this is the kind of thing we're looking at. How about file vision?
Yeah, we're kind of in a similar situation, as Joanna was saying. What we were doing is that we had designed a product, and we're looking for a machine for it. We knew that we wanted to lead the next generation of software products, and we knew the way to do that was by integrating visual aspects into the software so that it became more intuitive for people to use. And we actually started building file vision over 3 years ago, and the market research that we did for it, we brought it up on a prototype on smaller machines just to bring it out into the field and to show it to people. And then we actually sat it on the shelf and waited for a machine to come along that would allow us to do what we wanted to do. Our background is from mini computers and mainframe computers, and we did imaging software for the satellite program, and we're aware of how important images and graphics were to business. But there was a luxury that only large businesses could afford.
Well, let's take a look again at this approach of here's a database product. And most database products have textual orientation. You type in a little command, a Boolean expression that says, I'd like to find this and this or this. And as a result of that, you might get a paragraph back telling you about a retrieval of some sort. Now, my understanding is file vision approaches this from the standpoint of you have pictures and graphics that you'd like to manage in some way.
Yeah, exactly. What we've done is that we've integrated together an object-oriented drawing system and a filing system, such that every object that you have, which is normally thought of as a file or a record that you kept in your filing cabinet, in this case it's an object that's on a screen, and that object is associated with a record and the data behind that object. In just a second here, we'll have one up for you to look at.
What is the demo you're going to show us, Bob?
What I'm going to show you here is, this is a map of the United States, and this is a standard demo that we ship with all file vision so people can get a chance to practice and to work with file vision. And the map of the United States, each of the objects in this database are in fact the states, and here they are on the screen. Such if I touch the state of California, you'll notice down here that it tells you that's California. You reach over here, and if you don't know what that state is, turns out it's Colorado, it tells you that. And there's a little info button lit over here, which means it's going to give you the information about that. We're now linking off into the filing portion of file vision. And this is a file form, and this is Colorado, and this is the data that we're keeping behind it. In this case, it's different from other kinds of database systems, and they're very static, and you have to figure out beforehand what you're going to do.
Could you show us how to do a Boolean expression, for example, using file vision?
Okay, I'll just close this file here. I'll go over to what we call Tinker Menu. Again, we don't want to scare people with phrases like Boolean expressions. And instead, you just highlight some, which means that you're going to highlight some of these states based upon the data that's underneath them. In this case, I'm going to look at those states that have greater than or equal to 50 computer stores in them. And I say done. Now, this idea is similar from when you go into people's offices. You see that they have maps on the walls with pins in them, different colors. Well, file vision obsoletes that. We've now redrawn the map based upon the data that's underneath it, and I can shade them a slightly different shade. I'm going to shade them this shade.
Okay, the map is now highlighting which states, Bob?
The states that have at least 50 computer stores or more. And then if I cancel the highlighting here, you'll see that we've redrawn the map such that you can quickly view the United States map and see which have more than 50 computer stores.
You have some sorts of provisions in here then that you can build these, build new pictures and store away pictures and categorize them and so forth.
Yes, you can build just literally hundreds and hundreds of pictures. Not only that, people are out developing FileVision files that independent people can buy where the stuff is already drawn for you.
Right.
Well, Bob, that's a very impressive use of the kinds of graphics and power you were talking about, Gary. In just a moment, we're going to take a look at the Macintosh push into the business and office world, and we're going to meet a man who used pull-down menus before anybody ever heard of a Macintosh. So stay with us.